From American actors who became governors, the former later elected president, the latter also known for the phrase,
"I'll be back,"
to Chima and Chinua, two of Africa's most famous authors, who, though not related by some freaky coincidence, lived in the same house several years apart, and sadly, things did fall apart. To American T. Reeves and German M. Schumacher, Formula One aficionados, born on the same day. From America's first black ballerina to Robert Ballard, from Indian author, teacher of yoga, BKS Iyengar, who reminds us that we're not getting any younger, to the drama in Bahama and the rumble in the jungle, a killer and a chiller and the thriller in Manila, to Malala and Lilibeth, the former whose son nearly set in the SWAT district from an assassin's bullet, the latter Her Royal Majesty, whose empire the sun was said to never set, to the exquisite beauty of our majestic universe. There's something right here, right now for everyone. Hello and welcome to my Today in History channel. My name is Sotonye Afiesimama. This is Today in History for the 6th of January. Let's get cracking with events as recorded on this day in history. First, with a clue from yesterday's Today in History. Yes, I did mention Mozart having a Madras. So, what do you think I was talking about? Obviously not Mozart and his Madras, and Mozart looking as cool as a cucumber in his sunshades, anachronistic and photoshopped. But we shall start with this guy called Carl Sandburg. So before we go to Mozart and Sisters on the Sledge, let's start with Carl Sandburg. He was born on this day in 1878. Who was Carl Sandburg? He was an American poet, historian, and folklorist whose book, Abraham Lincoln, The Prairie Years and the War Years, won the Pulitzer Prize for History in 1940. So Carl Sandburg was born on this day in 1878. He was an American poet, historian, and folklorist, Pulitzer Prize winning historian. Let's move on now to the next event as recorded in history. Yes, this is one of the answers to the clues that I gave earlier, and her name is Kathy Sledge, one of the Sister Sledge sisters. She was born on this day in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The year was 1959. She enjoyed many pop, R&B, and disco hits with her sisters, Debra, Joni, and Kim. She also had success as a solo artist with Take Me Back to Love Again, which hit #1 in the year 1992. If you're enjoying my content so far, do not forget to check out my other videos and also give me a thumbs up. So just like this video or like my videos, share as well to your different social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, email, Reddit, Pinterest, Blogger, Tumblr, LinkedIn. They're all here. So subscribe as well by clicking the notification bell. So just click all and you are good to go. So let's get back on track with the events, important events as recorded on this day in history. Next is A.R. Rahman. This is a guy who brings the words Mozart and Madras together. He is known as the Mozart of Madras. So he is an Indian composer. Again, his name is A.R. Rahman. He was born on this day in 1966. The city of his birth, Madras, is now known as Chennai. He is an Indian composer, again known as the Mozart of Madras. So for those of you who guessed right, thumbs up to you. looking cool as a cucumber, A.R. Rahman, the Mozart of Madras, born on this day in 1966. Next, also born on this day, is movie director John Singleton, most well known for his film Boyz in the Hood. So 1968 was the year, and he was born in Los Angeles, California. So that's another picture of the movie director John Singleton, who was born on this day in 1968. 1993, sadly, we lost great jazz trumpeter and band leader Dizzy Gillespie. He was one of the founders of the bebop jazz style. He died on this day once more in 1993. Now, an interesting thing about this guy, Dizzy Gillespie. I met Dizzy Gillespie in Port Harcourt in 1987. So it's interesting how life comes full circle. Now, 1987, I was at secondary school with my friends, secondary school band, and the Port Harcourt Jazz Festival had been started in 1985. So 2 years earlier, Port Harcourt, the city where I grew up in, spent most of my formative years, and the Jazz Festival started by a man who was to become my father-in-law. So 1985 it started, 1986 was the second year, 1987 was the first year that we got involved in the Jazz Festival, and we carried on getting involved until 1990. So we were these young lads, teenagers who thought it would be famous, hanging out with Dizzy Gillespie, who we knew next to nothing about. We didn't know we were standing in the midst of greatness. I mean, we did know, but we didn't realize how popular this guy was, So I'm going to show you some information about Dizzy Gillespie on Wikipedia. So if you type music of Port Harcourt, you get all this information about the history of music in Port Harcourt. And believe it or not, this talks about jazz, obviously. And if you look very carefully, you'll see the name Dizzy Gillespie right here. So in the year 1987, like I said, I met Dizzy Gillespie for the first time, me and my friends, obviously. And as it says here, if you read very carefully, I'm going to show you some information as well, if I can find it. Okay, so that's the last name of my person, the man who was to become my father-in-law. So I'm just going to leave it there. And then obviously Dizzy Gillespie, so the history is here, about music in Port Harcourt, which I was involved in as a young lad. Okay, so let's now move on to the final event as recorded on this day in history. And sadly, it's the event that millions, possibly billions of people worldwide are now aware of what happened in the Capitol building, the US Capitol building on this day. So 2021 was the day supporters of President Donald J. Trump stormed the US Capitol, where Congress was meeting to certify Joe Biden's win in the 2020 election. Trump and his backers alleged widespread voter fraud, though there was no evidence for the claims. So it won't be the first time in United States history that president has said that the elections were rigged against him. Obviously, it was rigged in the favor of the incoming president. But as it says here, there was no evidence found for any fraud. So sadly, people lost their lives. At least one person committed suicide, which is very, very, very sad, But we hope that things in America improve as regards to elections, because a lot of countries around the world look to America for guidance, especially in this area of democratic governance. So we hope that things speak up. But it's also a reminder that we are human beings and that we are not perfect. Our systems are not perfect. We're not perfect, so our systems cannot be perfect. We just have to try our best to do the best that we can. Be sensible to other people's needs. listen to their problems, try and solve their problems, and respect people's beliefs, respect people's sexual orientations, respect people's right to live as they want to live, as long as they're not harming anyone, respect people in spite of their race or their size or wherever they've come from. It doesn't matter. The world would be a better place if only we have respect for one another. On that positive note, folks, not for the election, but the fact that we should have respect for each other and that the world would be a better place, we have come to the end of today's Today in History for the 6th of January. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's been nice hanging out with you. Remember, stay safe, and I shall see you tomorrow, January 7th, for another edition of Today in History. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.